Think hard work is all it takes to change your destiny? Well, think again. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are about to completely flip your perspective. In Africa, whether a kid from a poor background finishes primary school isn't decided by how much their parents sweat and toil. It's actually decided by the literal dirt under their feet. I know, it sounds totally counterintuitive, but this is the brutal reality.
Okay, let's dive into this. We all desperately want to believe that education is the great equalizer, right? We kind of just assume that if parents work hard enough to send your kids to school, all those societal disadvantages just magically disappear. But the reality is going to hit you like a ton of bricks.
Because the answer is a flat-out no. Where you live literally decides if you learn to read. This isn't just some abstract concept or a philosophical debate. This is mathematical destiny. Your future in Africa isn't written in the stars, it's hard-coded into the map.
Part 1. The myth of pure effort.
What shatters this myth is a massive, hard-hitting study that tracked over 16 million people. The researchers focused on one absolute do-or-die metric, upward mobility. And we're defining that simply. It means an illiterate parent having a child who actually manages to complete primary school. This isn't just dry data, guys. For many, finishing primary school is literally the only way to break the curse of absolute generational illiteracy.
Part 2. Mapping the opportunity divide.
We hear a lot about the African growth miracle, right? Well, let's be real. That wealth is not being shared equally. Just look at the sheer scale of inequality here. In a high-mobility place like South Africa, over 70% of kids from uneducated backgrounds can beat the odds. But look at South Sudan or Ethiopia. It's less than 20%. That means 80% of children there are trapped, locked entirely into the exact same educational deficit as their parents.
And here is the really crazy part. National averages? They're basically an illusion. The real divide is happening inside the borders. In Kenya, just by changing your zip code, literally just moving across an invisible line, a kid's chance of upward mobility swings from a totally dismal 5% all the way up to a soaring 85%. It's a regional lottery, an extreme spatial sorting of winners and losers.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really grim inertia. Regions with high literacy in the older generation stay highly literate today. Parental education acts almost like genetics, ruthlessly replicating itself into the next generation. So that starting line people talk about, it's really just the tracks laid down by the people who came before you. Part 3. The ghosts of colonial history. So why are certain areas just magically better? I promise you, it's not because the people there work harder. It's about historical ghosts. We're talking about a colonial railroad built in the 1890s or a Christian mission set up in the 1920s. Those investments made over a century ago created an inescapable inertia that is still dictating a newborn's destiny today. You literally cannot outwork that history.
Let's completely strip away the illusion of meritocracy here. So much of success boils down to pure geographical luck. Your hometown happens to be near the coast or the capital. Maybe the rugged terrain naturally protected it from the slave trade centuries ago. Or maybe there's just a low prevalence of malaria. Boom, that's it. Good luck is literally building the staircase to success.
Part 4. The age 12 deadline.
Now, this brings up a crucial question. Is it just smart, ambitious parents moving to good cities, or does the region itself magically change a child's brain and opportunities? To figure this out, researchers used a truly genius, jargon-free method, the sibling test. They compared brothers and sisters from the exact same family who moved at different ages. By doing this, they mathematically isolated the raw, independent power of the neighborhood from the parents' genetics or their effort.
The contrast between these two scenarios is absolutely wild. If you move to a good neighborhood after you turn 12, honestly, it provides zero boost to your chances of finishing primary school. None at all. Age 12 is literally a hard deadline for your educational destiny.
So, the crucial point is this. If a kid from a disadvantaged background manages to move to a high-mobility region before age 5, their chance of finishing primary school shoots up by 30 percentage points. 30%! That is an absolute game changer.
Once you grasp this, you see the gears turning. Every extra year a child spends in a good region before age 12 acts as an independent, life-altering force. The environment isn't just a backdrop, it is a raw, powerful engine, actively changing the trajectory of that child's survival. And here is another completely anti-intuitive point. Let's say a family didn't choose to move for better schools. Let's say they were forcibly displaced by a sudden shock or disaster. Well, that destination region still permanently forces its educational outcomes onto those children. You might escape a disaster,
but you absolutely cannot escape the assimilation of your new zip code.
Part 5. Flaws and the final verdict.
Now, no data is perfect, right? We need to stay objective and look at the blind spots. The study ignores temporary migrations and undocumented moves. It's also super focused on primary education, so it misses out on long-term wealth or later life success. Plus, to be fair, it can't measure the actual on-the-ground quality of the schools these kids attended.
But even with those flaws, the main takeaway is rock solid. Yes, having ambitious parents absolutely matters. However, spatial sorting is real, and regional exposure effects, the literal dirt you grow up on, are a massive, undeniable reality that ultimately dictates the harvest of a child's life.
Which leaves us with this crazy thought. If your lifelong ceiling was decided by a colonial railroad laid down decades before you were even born, or by the zip code you lived in before you turned 12, how much of your success is actually yours? Think about that for a second. Thanks for joining this explainer, and we'll see you next time.